This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. How about that new intro? Thank you, Jeff Dean, for doing that. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale here. And guess what, Shane? It has happened. We've talked about it for 4 or 5 months. Arizona now has the longest active winning streak in the country at 9 games, which ties the school record.
And we all feel great about it, don't we?
Sure. Great.
No, I look, I'm not. People get upset with me. I'm not going to listen after your negative stuff. So I'll try to be positive. Look, it is amazing. 9 wins in a row, the longest winning streak in the country. I say savor it, and it's likely never to happen again, just because it's probably not. It's very, very difficult to do among 130 some odd teams in FBS. But it is amazing. It's okay, I think, even with some of the struggles in the first 2 games, to just stop and appreciate the fact that this was a team that had a 20-game losing streak just a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and is now that has the longest winning streak in the nation, at least for the next couple of days, hopefully longer. We'll see. But it is a remarkable turnaround and shows you how quickly fortunes can change. And I'm very thankful that we've had so much winning football to talk about in recent months and in the last year plus, regardless of how the rest of the season goes.
All right, I got a couple stats for you, Shane, courtesy of CBS Sports Research. Arizona's 9-game winning streak is the longest in the country. We know that. It's tied a school record set in 1974-75 and matched in 1997-98. So if Arizona were to beat Kansas State on Friday, they would have their longest active winning streak, or longest school winning streak ever. And the funny thing is they won a total of 10 games in a 4-year span between 2019 and 2022. And now they're going for 10 in a row, which is just wild. The Wildcats have also won 5 straight games against AP-ranked opponents, albeit all of them came last year when they were on a roll here. They've won 3 straight road games. They are 4-4 in their last 8 ranked versus ranked games, including 2 straight wins. So, there's a few positive things. Listen, Friday's game or Saturday's game stunk. It was awful. I couldn't wait to get out of there. I'm glad they pulled out a win.
Did you stay the whole game?
Oh, yeah, I had to.
Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't going to just, because it was, and I was thinking, now it was a quick game, fortunately, because nobody was scoring and nobody, it wasn't like the game before where they're timeout.
Yeah.
It was just kind of stunk. I mean, I just was not happy about it. They played like crap. They looked like they didn't care. If they had lost, it would have been the most devastating Arizona loss ever. For now, we'll just keep that as 2021 to NAU will be up there. It would have.
I want to touch on this though, because you said it looked like they didn't care. Can you elaborate on that? Like the whole team?
The body language was very poor. Now, were they sick? Like, was something going on? But like, it looked like the offense didn't care. I think the defense was fine. The defense knew that they had to bail them out. So I want to take that back. But the offense looked like they didn't care.
Okay.
Noah looked mad because nobody was blocking for him. T-Mac was mad because he wasn't getting the ball. I mean, the lack of effort from certain players on offense was noticeable, even for me to say that.
Okay, fair enough. Interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. It is Buy or Sell, presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. We have a lot to talk about today. Go to iceshaker.com, use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and get $5 off your first purchase. After you do so, make sure to fill out the post-purchase survey and mention Wildcat Country. We will be very grateful. All right, Shane, number 1 in Buy or Sell. Something looked off on Saturday night. What was it? Not really a buy or sell question. What was it to you?
You alluded to it. Maybe it's all speculation. Is there an illness going through the locker room? I don't know. Obviously, when you're missing guys in the offensive line, I think, I've talked about over and over how I think most games are still won in the trenches. And a lot of people, that's not a, uncommon opinion. A lot of people think that way as well. I think sometimes when you have some key injuries and things don't quite go right to start a game, I think sometimes games just start feeling kind of weird, and it's like, okay, something's off in this game. Like the players are on the field, like this is not how we expected this to go. We're just not clicking. So we just need to find a way to fudge out a win against an FCS team, which is what they did. So yeah, I don't know exactly what was off. You could say, did it start with the offensive line? Was it the play calling, which I know we'll get into? Obviously some penalties, some red zone issues, a lot of things that we thought were behind us that kind of, we saw from 2021 and 22 crept back in, and just that game, 0 for 10 on third down, awful. But I feel like a lot of times in football, especially in football, something doesn't go right early, and everything feels kind of strange. Like if you're having a bad day and things keep going wrong, you kind of get that mentality. And Arizona, I think, just had to navigate through this one. I'm not making excuses for them. There's a lot of things to work through, but I just watching it, I feel like that's how that game kind of went.
Yeah, it just, to me, Shane, just as I said, it looked like they just didn't care. They were like, all right, we're going to win this game on to Friday. But I think the fact that we don't have injury updates beforehand, we didn't know that Gunnar Maldonado was going to be out. We didn't know, we knew Rhino was out. Josh Baker, we didn't know the situation there.
Yeah.
Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, obviously there are eligibility issues. We had no idea. The only thing that I saw, you get to the stadium, I get there early, and there are guys walking around without pads on, and it's like, uh-oh. So we don't know who's going to play. I mean, the rumor is that Dalton Johnson's hurt, but I guess we'll find out on Friday. I mean, cool uniforms that they have, by the way, on Friday. Yeah. Those are nice. We'll make our picks later in the show. Barrett Baker going to join us. We'll recap everything. It's kind of like I want to be excited, but I'm also toned down a little bit here because it was just a little depressing from what I saw the other day.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this a little more, but I certainly feel like this team, as at this point, is probably closer to a 6-win team than a 10-win team at this point. Things change week to week in college football, and if they look great on Friday, this will all go out the window. But certainly through the first 2 weeks, it's hard to really feel good about a prospect of a Big 12 championship unless some things drastically change.
I would agree with that. All right, Shane, do you think they were intentionally limiting their playbook before facing Kansas State and Utah by yourself?
I'll buy it a little bit. I think that I saw that a lot on social media, because I was criticizing Dino Babers and just talking about lack of imagination and just being too conservative. I called him Dino Mazzoni, which probably was a little over the top, overreaction to Saturday night's game. But I don't know if it's just that. I think that you have a new play caller and a new quarterback getting used to each other. I think the offensive line not giving Nova Feed as much time to threw things off as well. So, and we'll talk to Barrett Baker a little bit more about that and get his thoughts. I was a little disappointed. I think it was more not necessarily lack of imagination. I think the conservative play calling at some points in the game when you could have thrown the ball down the field instead of running it 3 times in a row. That's why I had the Noel Mazzoni flashbacks. I remember thinking back to the 2018 ASU game when Arizona let that lead slip away and they kept running the ball up the middle and the fans just kept groaning. And again, and that's an apples to oranges situation, but it made me think about that. So the conservative nature of the play calling probably bothered me more than the lack of imagination. I do think they'll open up the playbook. The idea that, like Dino Babers is crazy like a fox and he's somehow like keeping all these great plays that are going to magically work away from us until they play K-State, I think is kind of nonsense. But I do expect it to be opened up a bit more on Friday. And I guess the positive is that K-State probably hasn't seen the best of what Arizona has to offer yet.
All right, that's I like that you're putting a spin on it. I thought it was a watered down playbook for sure. I thought it was incredibly unimaginative. And it was just like, let's get our win and get out of here. But that was not good. Nothing about it was good. All right, number 2, Shane, the offensive line is the biggest weakness on the team. Buy or sell?
I don't think, when this team is healthy, I don't think it is the worst position, but I think it is the most important position that they're struggling at, put it that way. I think it is the most important that they looked very good going into the season. And then, in training camp, you learned that Raymond Polito, who's going to be the starting left tackle for the year, he's out. Don't know if he's ever going to play for Arizona again. And so all of a sudden you're down 2 guys on the offensive line from last year, including the guy who protects your quarterback's blind side. And then you have a guy like Josh Baker out, which is just, I think massive. I think Grayson Stovall, who was Jed Fish's first commit at Arizona and actually came on Wildcat Country to talk about it with us.
Yeah.
Started at center, but he's new at the, he doesn't have a lot of experience at the college level. So yeah, I think it is the biggest, I don't think it's the worst position, but I think it's the biggest position of concern, if that makes sense, just because how important it is.
Yeah, I mean, based on what we saw the other night, Shane, with the injuries and everything like that, yeah, they look like a weakness. The defense showed me something. I gave out my grades from watching them on X for those of you that follow me, and Shane reposted it on the Wildcat Country X account. I think I gave the defense like a B plus and the offense like a D. I mean, they were awful, and the offensive line I would have given an F minus. They weren't blocking at all, and I think Noah got frustrated. I don't know what that was, but if you can't block NAU, good luck against real teams.
Yeah.
No offense. I mean, FBS teams.
Yeah.
Everybody else in this, like, that was an embarrassment. The offensive line coach needs to do a better, like, that was inexplicable.
What do I always say? You win the battle at the line of scrimmage, you win the turnover battle, you're going to win 99.9% of the time. And the opposite is true if you lose both. Yep. And Arizona's struggling in both categories right now. They got one takeaway against NAU late in the game, and that was it. They've got, I think, 3 in 2 games. The turnover sword is still looking pretty bare. So that is a concern. The offensive line is a concern. The defensive line is on top of that. But I think like the 2 biggest keys, the time tested keys to winning football games, Arizona is struggling at big time right now.
All right, let's touch on this, Shane. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, losing him would be absolutely detrimental for this offense.
I'll buy it. It's kind of I tweeted out Alonzo Trier flashbacks. Is he going to be eligible this next game or not? Who knows? Do you remember? And I'm sure you recalled this. The rambling ASU fan on the message board.
Yeah, he probably was the one that turned him in. Yeah,
it could be. But the weird thing about it was he went and played against New Mexico, and it was fine. And then someone somewhere and Brent Brennan said someone in with their compliance team caught it and just said, "Whoa, let's be careful with him." And so I don't know more than that. Are we waiting on the NCAA to make a decision on this, or is it an internal thing and if so, how long does it take? So it doesn't sound, just listening to what Brennan said, it doesn't sound like he's going to play again anytime soon. And I think that's a big loss. They do have some depth at the running back position. Quali Conley, I remember PFF's transfer portal grades in the offseason. And Jonah Coleman was number 1, but then Krosky-Merritt and Conley were 2 and 3 in one way or the other. I forget which order it was. But Conley definitely was a massive ad. Riscano, they called him on ESPN's broadcast. I'm still not 100%, and I don't take ESPN's word on how to pronounce anyone's name. Speedy Luke is in the mix. He's still, obviously, I think at this point we know he's not going to be an every down guy. And Conley can catch passes too, which I think is a big deal. But you lose that depth at running back and just be able to interchange guys like they were last year for the most part. I think that is a big cause for concern. Yes.
All right. I'm actually going to sell this one. I think the depth is there. I liked what I saw from Risano. I think it's the C is silent, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
I think Quali Conley showed me something. Speedy Luke hasn't done a heck of a lot, but I think those 3 are plenty good enough to carry the load. So I'm not going to freak out about not having Krosky-Merritt if he's in fact shut down. What bothers me, this guy knows what his eligibility is. And he knows if he played for a team that wasn't really tracking stats, he knows that if you I know what he's trying to do, but be honest. That is what bothers me. This should not be a thing. If I played for a team, I know I want to keep playing, but then I'll just go to the UFL. I'll play there. I'll dominate in my own mind, and then I'll get another. I'll get a shot in the NFL.
Yeah.
The fact that this is even a thing is ridiculous.
I would just love to know what's going on behind the scenes, how this all started. Because again, it'd be one thing if he was held out for the season, but he played against New Mexico. He played well against New Mexico, looked great, and then all of a sudden he's not playing, and then it's an eligibility thing, and we don't know when he's going to be back. What changed between week 1 and week 2? Who said what to who? I would just
outed him. Yeah, somebody outed him.
Possibly, maybe some bitter person on New Mexico's. We're all speculating because who the hell knows? but it's just a weird situation and a really unfortunate one for, because you would like to know, okay, if we're going to recruit this guy and he's going to transfer to Arizona and we're going to give him a scholarship, that we can at least know that he's going to play for us, as opposed to being able to be told right away, oh, by the way, this guy's not eligible. You might want to go. Well, you still have time to go find someone else to fill that spot. And this is worst case scenario. It's like, oh, now we know, and now we can't do a damn thing about it.
Absolutely disgust. All of it's weird and disgusting to me. Anyways, all right. Number 4, Shane. It's hard to be impressed by Brent Brennan's coaching at this point. Buy or sell?
Oh, I'm gonna sell it. I think it's way too early. I think I think so many fans, and I'm guilty of this too sometimes, are just as fickle as the wind. And I still think, number one, I think Brent Brennan is still going to do very well for Arizona long term. Number two, I'm not shocked at the early season struggles. I'm shocked at not shocked, but I am surprised at how much they've struggled in certain areas, especially being down at halftime to NAU, only up 3 against New Mexico at halftime. Those are, I we all bit more nails than we really should have in those 2 games. But I said it before the season started that I thought there was going to be some growing pains just because of the nature of change. It's difficult to change. It's difficult to get used to a new coaching staff. I think sometimes it can be a shot in the arm when things aren't going well. But when you're riding a high and you got a 10-win season, you're on a big winning streak, you think the sky's the limit. Then your coach leaves. I think it's a bit different feel. And I think Brent Brennan's a great relationships guy. Everyone's established that. The fact that he got so many guys to stay at Arizona is a testament to that. And he's kind of a victim of his own success because our expectations for this program were so high this year for that reason. He did such a good job of that. But you just never know how everything's going to click until the games start. I expect that to get better as the season goes on. But the idea that Brent Brennan, that he's not the right coach or that he hasn't done a great job so far, I think it's way too early to say. I'll be the first to admit if I'm wrong if he doesn't work out at Arizona, but it's way too early to say that, in my opinion.
No, fine. Here's where I disagree with you. I am not impressed at all, so I'm going to buy this. I do not like what I've seen in the first 2 weeks, period, end of paragraph.
What don't you like from him specifically, though?
His team is not playing at an intensity that I want to see.
The intensity level is
that. Yeah, I mean,
okay.
it was
okay.
It was
That's
on
fair.
defense apparent in game 1, and on offense it was apparent in game 2. And why is that the case? Because under Jed Fish, I mean, obviously we know it's football is a long season. There are ebbs and flows. Never at this point am I calling for Brent Brennan's head. And I like Brent, and I think he needs at least a couple of years, and let's see what he does. Now, Arizona hasn't even lost a game yet. So anybody that says that is ridiculous.
No.
Let's see what happens over the next 2 games, and we can go from there. Cam Rising got hurt for Utah. Arizona plays them in 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks, whatever it is. If his hand is not right, well, that's an advantage for Arizona. But one game at a time, we'll get there. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
All right.
And didn't San Jose State start like 1-5 last year or something like that?
And then turned it around. Right. I would rather that not be the case. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Or something like that. All right. Number 5, Shane, losing at Kansas State and Utah is fine in the greater scheme of things if Arizona shows improvements on offense and defense and they don't get blown out. Buy or sell?
I'll buy that. I think it's reasonable to expect Arizona to be competitive, more competitive. I mean, they won the first 2 games, but you know what I'm saying. You expect them to look better, and hopefully that translates to them being competitive in both of those games. These are 2 difficult games, and even if Arizona was clicking on all cylinders, they wouldn't be favored to win either of them, most likely. And it's tough to win either of those games in very tough places to play, especially at Utah. It's going to be very challenging, Cam Rising or not. So yeah, I think that if Arizona loses a close game at Kansas State, I think the initial thing will be disappointment. We could have been 3-0, we could have had a 10-game winning streak, but at least we're going to feel a little better. Like, okay, going into the bye week, we've righted the ship a little bit. Hopefully, we have a chance to get healthier and give Utah our best shot. And if it doesn't work out at Utah either, so be it. But yeah, I'm not. My expectation right now, and obviously it changes week to week in college football, is that not for Arizona to win either of these games, but to be better, to look better, to look more polished, to have the game plan look better, to have the offensive line look better. And I expect it's a really good opportunity for Arizona to showcase itself on a national stage against another ranked team. And that doesn't mean that they have to win that game in order to come off looking good. It just means they have to be competitive and keep fans watching for 4 quarters, and hopefully they can do that.
Now, yeah, and I don't want to come off saying, all right, it's okay to lose football games.
Yeah.
I mean, Arizona has the longest win streak in the country, Shane. Like, this is something to celebrate. For a week in our lives, the Wildcats are the undisputed holder of the longest winning streak in the country. I never thought I would see that in my adult lifetime.
Never. Yeah.
After Dick Tomey coached Arizona, I never thought I'd see that again. So here we are. I want play well. Sometimes it's like when you're playing on the golf course. I know you're not much of a golfer, but if you play against somebody and they play really well, but you say, hey, I played as well as I could, they just beat me. I'm okay with that. Like, that happens. If you don't play well and Arizona gets blown out against Kansas State or Utah, yeah, we got problems. Then we're going to come on here and we're going to vent.
Yeah.
If they play well and you just say, listen, offensively, it was working. Defensively, they just couldn't shut down this potent running attack of Kansas State, Avery Johnson, running back. Listen, totally get it. That's what I want to see. Play well, and we'll make our picks later in the show. And maybe, I don't know what you're going to say. I don't know what Barrett's going to say. I obviously know what I'm going to say. We'll see if everybody's happy with what we think.
And I think the bottom line, Eric, is to kind of summarize this: is college football very often doesn't make any sense.
No.
So from week to week, it's hard. You say, okay, well, this team beat that team, and this team lost to that team. Therefore, this should happen. Rarely works out that way. We saw Notre Dame go and beat on the road to beat Texas A&M, and then lose at home to Southern Illinois. We saw Oregon almost lose to Idaho. Not almost lose, but a very close game. So we've already seen a lot of crazy stuff, and what happens one week often has no relevance with what happens the following week. I do think health is a concern, and there's some things you can't cover up, and that's one of them. And I think that's the biggest issue for Arizona right in the here and now. But we've seen stranger things. I mean, remember last year, none of us thought that Arizona was going to go into Pullman and whip Washington State like that.
No,
and that was the beginning of their winning streak. You just never know in college football, and very often it makes little sense. And that's honestly the reason we love it, is because of the unpredictable nature of the game.
So we'll break it down more. Barrett Baker coming up in the next segment, and then we'll make our picks in the final segment. Let's talk real fast, Shane. Arizona's non-conference schedule for basketball came out at Wisconsin on November 15th, which, by the way, is a significant date. It's a Friday. Arizona plays at home against Houston that night at 8:15 Arizona time. Wisconsin game probably 5 o'clock. So that's going to be a ridiculous night. Then you have the next week, the Duke game at home, November 22nd. UCLA is in Phoenix on December 14th. Don't forget the Battle for Atlantis. They open with Davidson at 5:30 p.m. Arizona time on that Wednesday. On Thanksgiving, they will play either Providence or Oklahoma. And then, from there, I would assume likely Gonzaga on Friday if they were to make it to the finals, but go from there. So any thoughts on what you saw from this non-conference schedule?
No, I like it. It's pretty well loaded again, but what I do like, and I know that you have some trepidation about, is the fact that the schedule is not going to drop off after non-conference this time. I like that Arizona is going to take some more bumps and bruises throughout the entire season. I know you think that our fans might not be able to handle, double-digit losses or close to that, but I think they'd handle it just fine if it means the Final Four. I think that the nature of college basketball, like football, is also very unpredictable, and that comes with the NCAA tournament. We've seen that, and Arizona hasn't been to the Final Four since 2001. But I think that one of the common denominators in them coming up short a lot of times in recent years is they haven't played very good competition later in the season. They loaded up early in the season, but they're just not able to in the Pac-12, and now in the Big 12, they're going to have the opportunity to play great teams throughout the year. And, you think back to the Big 12 was what the Pac-10 used to be. When Arizona won the championship in 97, they finished tied for 4th in the Pac-10, and they were still a 4 seed going to the NCAA tournament. And I think that prepped them very well for their NCAA tournament run. So excited. I'm excited about it. I know it's going to mean more losses. I think that's okay. I am kind of tired of Arizona being the regular season champions. I'd like to see them do more than that. And I think the non-conference schedule that Tommy Lloyd has put together, along with the conference schedule, is going to help them get there.
I'm going to say this, Shane. Last year, I made a whole complaint, a whole spiel about how I hated how difficult the non-conference schedule was. I like it this year. I'm good with it. I just want to say that. No complaints from me. You will not hear, oh, it's too hard. This is a good non-conference.
It's maybe a little less daunting than last year's looked.
A lot, Shane. A lot.
Yeah. But
it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot better. You're not at Duke. You're at a Wisconsin team that's You're not playing Purdue, who went to the championship game. Yeah. You're not playing Florida Atlantic, who was in the Final Four the year before. It's a good schedule. I am pleased with the schedule.
I'm glad.
Good job, Tommy.
Glad you're happy.
I think he heard what I had to say clearly,
obviously,
and made those adjustments. Yeah.
All right. I didn't listen to podcasts because he pictures guys in their basement doing. I'd like to say I am in office upstairs by my loft and not in a basement. I don't have a basement, Tommy Lloyd, but he's not going to hear this anyway because he doesn't listen. But still, no, I'm sure. I'm sure Erica was completely you're complaining.
Yeah, clearly that's exactly what it is. Now, Wildcat Country is brought to you by Harrah's Auction Casino. We are so proud to be partnered with them. Harrah's Auction is the only Valley casino with Caesars Rewards, player's card that pays for Vegas and more. In fact, the reward credits you earn with Caesars Rewards can be redeemed for hotel stays, dining, and more at 50 destinations across the country, including Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, New Orleans, and dozens of others. Sign up, play, and earn Caesars Rewards only at Harrah's Auction Casino. One card, 50 destinations to enjoy your perks. Coming up next, it is Barrett Baker here on Wildcat Country.
When you're on the golf course and it's 100 degrees outside, you know what's great? The ice shaker, which keeps your water cold.
You heard the man. Get your custom Arizona Wildcats ice shaker now at iceshaker.com.
All right, Shane, we had him on a few weeks ago to preview game 1, and we're having him back on 2 weeks later to preview game number 3. It is our favorite Arizona and college football analyst, Barrett Baker of the Tucson Fire Department, former special teamer and captain at Arizona football. All right, Barrett, here we go. I'm not happy with what I saw on Saturday. How do you feel? Where are you at?
Do you remember what the score of the Stanford game was last year, Eric?
It's like 24-23, something like that, right?
Okay. But I guess I'm not happy either, but then I have to realize that at the end of the season, all I'm going to really care about is that it was a W. That being said, we've been inconsistent, but I'm going to be real simple about this one. I think that the last week's offensive ineptitude was truly about the 5 guys that are up front. And I think when you take any football position and you have 1 out of 5 that has started in the same position for 2 weeks consecutively, it's going to have a huge impact. So if we can get the offensive line back to the week 1 version over the next 2 to 3 weeks, then I think that the season itself is going to be a lot different. So I just think when you take a quarterback and you move him off his spot, as was consistently happening last week with Noah, then they're just different. You give a quarterback a clean pocket, I think Noah has proven over the course of his career he's going to shred people. But when you have the breakdowns in line protection that we were having consistently, and more importantly, it put it on film, and that's what's the bigger issue to me now is we just gave somebody a blueprint for how to beat our offense. And so we got to get Jonah back to the right side. You got to get Rhino healthy and get him back to the left side. We got to get Wendell at left guard where he's been. You got to get Baker back at center. And Leif at right guard. And if we put that 5 together that started the first week, I think our season's a lot different offensively. And the flip side is that defensively, I was thrilled with the improvement that we made from the previous week to last week, regardless of opponent. They did a great job rallying to the ball. They got some stops, and they just look like a much better defense.
Barrett, I know you watch these games like the former football player you are, as opposed to us who's always watched from the sidelines. Are there any maybe unsung heroes on either side of the ball that you've just noticed throughout these first 2 games that has really impressed you?
I mean, I think Tay Brown, being again a true sophomore, that we didn't really know much about him last year besides the fact that he busted a couple big coverages when he did get opportunities to play. But man, he has played every snap for 2 weeks in a row. I think last week he had 11 tackles, maybe 12 tackles, and he doesn't appear to be a liability. And so I think, again, just the fact of his best days are ahead of him because he's really only played realistically, 4 or 5 games in his career to this point. So I like what I'm seeing out of him. I think Trey Smith from San Jose State has done a real solid job. 11 Kennedy from Utah has made some explosive plays, and he was a guy that I don't think really was a huge radar acquisition in the offseason. So, all told, I think, and then just some of the unsung, because of, again, I don't exactly know what happened to Dalton Hilliard last week, but he didn't play in the second half at all. And so who comes in? Owen Goss, number 27. I'm biased because I love the number, but he played phenomenally in the second half last week. Genesis Smith has played very well playing for Gunnar Maldonado. So we've gotten a little bit nicked up early in the season. Tyler Powell, he came in, had 3 receptions from the tight end position. That's the most that he's played in his time in the program. And again, I don't know what happened to Olsen to give Tyler Powell the ability to get onto the field, but when you get those chances, then you have to take it. That's how you develop depth, and I'm pleased with that aspect. And the last thing I would say, Quali Conley, what a rock star for the first 2 weeks of the season, especially considering what happened with the eligibility concerns, because you need running backs, and I'm not giving up on him, but Speedy at this point in time, there's nothing that you would look at his body of work and say that he is going to be a consistent running back. So to have Conley come in and produce, and then our Ole Miss transfer, I want to get the pronunciation right, but I believe it's Risano. For him to come in and get that explosive run. So I think there's a lot of positives that we can look at. It was just a yucky offensive performance, but I really do think it starts up front.
Yeah, and with Krosky Merritt potentially out, definitely the running back depth is important, and hopefully Fox gets Conley's first name right as opposed to ESPN in week 1. Kind of an open-ended question for you, Barrett. Your thoughts on Dino Babers' play calling through 2 games?
Well, I didn't have any problems with it the first week. And I the concern obviously after the first week is that a lot of that was based off explosive plays. And so when T-Mac was going off for, 4 touchdowns and 300 yards receiving, and they made it look easy. Last week, it was beyond frustrating. It was boring. It was challenging. But I think when I go back and look at it, we tried to do several different things. We tried to move, Noah out of the pocket. We tried to do some screen passes. We tried a lot of different things, but none of it worked. And so when you're an offensive coordinator, you go in with a game plan based off the look that you think you're going to see. But at the end of the day, when you call a perfect play and it blows up because your right guard or right tackle whiffs on a block, what can you do? And, we got back, and when all else is failing, you go back to the run. And we went back to the run, and we played physical football, and that's what you do against a smaller team that you should beat. And so I guess in that aspect, the simplification in the second half of just going back and punching them in the mouth, I was okay with that. Now, what have we seen the entire playbook out of the first 2 weeks? I'm not quite sure yet. I know that obviously we want to use a lot of 2 tight end sets, but that means that you got to get tight end production. We hear so often about the athleticism of Key Burnett, and we can see it. We can see this gazelle that's 6'6" and runs like the wind out there. But where's the productivity? And at this point in time, I think the biggest thing I can realize that this happened to us in 1998 is we know maybe losing Tanner and Jay Cowing on the offensive side of the ball is having a bigger impact than what we had forecasted, because I'm not quite sure who else Noah is throwing to with those windows.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that, Barrett, is like, it feels like nobody has stepped up. Like Montana Lamonius Craig is invisible. Has he even caught a pass? I mean, where are these, Devin Hyatt got one the other day, but it feels like Noah is pretty much staring down T-Mac, and outside of that, it's one-dimensional, and that's a concern.
Truly. And this is one where, it's coach speak, but you do have to break down the film, because when I'm sitting there in section 12 and I'm thinking, what is happening here? There was one pass play in particular last week, though, where we had a crosser in the second quarter. He lined up in the slot on the right side. He ran a crosser. He was wide open for about 3 seconds, but Noah saw him in the 4th second, and he hit him so late that the backside corner was able to come off his responsibility and knock it down. There was another one that he hit to Hyatt in the seam, a little bit of an underthrow for about 28 yards. On the right side, we went 4 verticals on that one, and Burnett didn't have anyone within 10 yards of him. So we do have some open receivers. But again, without the clean pocket, then I don't think Noah was seeing it. And so even when it was there, it wasn't there from an execution standpoint. So really got to go figure out, how do you get the ball to Patterson? Raymelo Murphy was a transfer that was supposed to come in and be a little bit of a proven commodity. He didn't even suit up last game. So we are in dire need of somebody else taking the load off of T-Mac, because when they do what they did last week, which is put a safety over the top, bracket him, now you're going to have to force the ball into him, and he's going to have to make, unreal catches, and that's not fair. Seeing Tyler Powell and seeing, some of those easy catches, 7 yards is 7 yards. It's 2nd and 3 if you do that. So it doesn't all have to be the splash play that gets the 50-yard gain. And I think maybe that's what we need to do, is learn how to dump it off to the backs. That was a great play to Patterson. It seemed like it was a dump off pass, and man, he made a physical run at the end of that to bust that thing into the end zone. Make the defense defend you.
All right, how about T-Mac? His body language looked very poor. I don't know. Did he look sick to you? Did he look injured? What was your take as to what's going on over there?
Just again, from an observer standpoint, I'm sure it's frustrating to go from a 10-catch performance where everyone is saying, my gosh, this guy's a top 5 pick. And then all of a sudden the next week, you can't, you do 2 catches. And so I know that there's a frustration because every receiver thinks that they're open every time. Throw me the damn ball, Keyshawn Johnson 20, 30 years ago. So I think that at that point in time, he has such a chemistry with Noah because they've played together for so long that he probably just wants him to throw the ball. But when we did throw the ball to him into a double coverage, then it gets intercepted based off a deflection. So, it was just a very, very different game for him. And I think that if he had the ability to get into his routes instead of Noah running for his life back there, then things are probably different. But when it comes to the health component of it, I didn't see anything that happened in the first week that would lead me to think that he was really banged up. But I just think it was more probably productivity and frustration.
Barrett, Arizona has committed the 7th most penalties in college football among FBS teams to this point. Your perspective on, is this going to be, in your opinion, just through 2 games, likely a constant throughout the season, or is a lot of what you've seen easily correctable?
The personal foul penalties and that type of penalty are the ones that you can't have. I mean, Justin Flo, you go down and you're covering a punt and there's a fair catch and you blast the guy. That's a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct, and that's just discipline. And I don't know if he didn't see the fair catch called or what, but you're not expecting Wendell W to get 2 holding penalties when he's almost an All-American in pass protection under normal circumstances. So I think a coach looks very differently at those 2 types of penalties. A block in the back, something along those lines, that's lacking discipline, because you can't do that. If it's a holding penalty, and you run a sweep to the right and the guy pulls off and flails his arms, there's a little bit different. So I'm rambling there, but there's a difference in types of penalties. We've got to eliminate the selfish penalties, which are the personal fouls, the unsportsmanlike conduct. You just can't have those. The bang bang penalty where it's a hold, that's just the way it goes. We had another penalty for not having enough people on the line of scrimmage. That's a discipline penalty. So you've got to be able to take away those dumb penalties that are just momentum killers, because when you put yourself behind the chains, everything changes. When it's 1st and 10 compared to 1st and 15, or when it's 2nd and 20, those kill drives. And we can't get into the habit of getting behind the chains and killing drives.
Agree, 100%. Last question for you, Barrett. You know how fans are week to week, and a lot of them are already starting to wonder, is Brent Brennan the right guy for the program? I'm fully on board that I think long-term he will be. I'm not surprised, terribly surprised anyway, at some of the early struggles, just because of the turnover in coaching staff. There's always adjustments, but there's maybe this idea that he's just too nice a guy. He's not enough disciplinary. Brent well. What are your thoughts on that, and why should Arizona fans be patient?
I think there's always a concern, and I think when you just see him constantly being positive on the sideline and let's go, but what's the alternative to that? Because we've seen the alternative, and the alternative is Coach Stoops and his body mechanics, and we've seen Coach Rodriguez and his body mechanics. And I'm going to play for the guy that's going to clap, give me a hug, and say, "Hey, get out there and do it again next time." And I believe in that. I think there's plenty of butt chewing that's going on behind the scenes, and ultimately, unless it's some dumb personal foul, that's what your position coach is there for as well. And that's what I think that we need to keep sight of. When those guys come off the field, when you see Dwayne Aquina, he is in their ear, he is on the sidelines, and he's making adjustments. And you don't need the head coach. Coach Brennan is the head coach. And I think it's refreshing the fact that he's not Jed Fish as the offensive coordinator that doesn't know what the other half of the field is doing. He's constantly looking at things, and that's his job, even keel. So when you hear him say the most unimportant statistic in the world is the halftime score, that's what they believe. Now, would I like to see a little bit more discipline? Yes. The dumb penalties, that's a hard line. That's a hard stop. You can't have those things. Little things, again, whether you're traditional or not, when we do the Wildcat walk, not everyone's in a suit. Okay, that's a difference in styles. But does that make a difference in how we're playing for 60 minutes? That's where you need to have the team leadership step up and do their part as well. So I'm still on board. We're 2-0. That's what we needed to be. That's what we forecasted to be. And if we can sneak out one of these next 2 weeks and get a win on the road, then we're exactly where we need to be. And so I'm not hitting the panic button.
All right. I was just going to ask you, we'll make predictions in our next segment, but do you feel less confident going into this week's game than you did 2 weeks ago?
Big asterisks on that. And I would say yes, but I truly just think it's because of the health of the offensive line. I don't think that we are at 100% offensively. And so, the hope obviously is we get Baker, no relation, back at center. And I don't know if it's too early for Rhino, but we need to get the pieces back in place to where we are the best five. And if you put your best five on the field, then I think that we are going to be able to compete with anybody. Again, defensively, I think the first week was just a snafu to where that really wasn't Arizona football defense. And so that's a little bit of a dodge, but I think we're a good team. I think we got a lot of pieces in place. And I just think that we have to have protection up front to give Noah the ability to be Noah.
Coming up next, we're going to make our picks, and we will see. I don't know what Shane and Barrett are thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking. It's going to be fun here on Wildcat Country.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi folks, here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
It is time for our pick segment. Now, Shane last week and we tied. Jeff Dean actually beat us. He had 6 points. Shane and I both had 5. It's 10 for me, 9 for Shane, and 8 for our guests. Barrett, you need to make up after a so week 1. Let's get going. Barrett, I'm going to start with you. Give me an upset special, a team that's going to win outright, or at least keep it close as an underdog.
I think there's a team that's just a little bit north of where we're at, and they are playing some really good football, and I think the program is on the rise, and I think that's the Running Rebels of UNLV. I think they knock off Kansas this week. I'm very impressed by what they're doing up there.
Guaranteed Red Bowl rematch.
Yes, yeah. It is, and a 7-point underdog, so good pick there. How about you, Shane?
I'm not going to pick them to win, but I'm thinking Tulsa at home against Oklahoma State. They're a 20-point underdog. Oklahoma State, I watched most of that game against Arkansas. The Cowboys are pretty fortunate to win that game. I think they're going to figure it out, but they're struggling a little bit right now. Tulsa's at home. I like taking a home dog that big, so I'll go with Tulsa to at least cover.
I don't love the line in this game, but I'm going Memphis plus 6.5 at Florida State. I think they win the game outright. I think Florida State is broken, and so I'm going to take Memphis to win that game outright. All right, College Game Day is in South Carolina. LSU -7 at South Carolina. Shane, we'll start with you. What do you think?
I like LSU to bounce back. I think that they're good. I think USC is a legitimately good team as well. I think that was a great week 1 game. I think LSU finds a way to win.
Barrett, how about you?
I'll copy that. I think Coach Brian Kelly's pounding the table on the fist was so lame for me. Just
So
didn't
many,
seem
so many good
legitimate.
memes from that, though, right?
It's just so bad. But I would agree. I think that they'll rally, and they still got a lot of talent on the team.
Yeah, I think South Carolina played a bad Kentucky team last week. I mean, great win on the road, but LSU -7. I think they win the game by 10 points. So I'll tentatively take LSU laying the points. How about Missouri versus Boston College? Now, this is a ranked versus ranked game. Missouri is -17. I think Boston College narrowly covers that. Look for a defensive game. How about you, Barrett?
I'm okay with Boston College. I think Missouri wins the game, but I don't think they win by 17. It's just so hard early in the season when we're in week 3 to truly know what those programs are compared to what they've been 5 years ago. So new coaching staffs on both of them, correct, and or newer. But I think Boston College keeps it close.
Shane?
I'm going to go with Missouri to cover. I know 17 points is a lot. Boston
A
College
lot of
is ranked.
points.
I don't necessarily buy them as a top 25 team. I do know that after Arizona's 9-game win streak, I think Missouri is tied with Army for the longest at 6, and so they could, depending on how things go in Manhattan, Kansas, they could end up with the nation's longest winning streak or tied with it pretty soon. But I'm going to take Missouri to cover. I mean, I was going to take them anyway, but I'm feeling better about it now, just to be a little different. I got to gain ground on you at some point, Eric.
You're only down 1 point. How about West Virginia at Pittsburgh, the backyard brawl? I put this in there for you, Shane. I know you love some West Virginia football this year. You're obviously taking them to cover -3, right?
Yeah, well, it's more because I just don't think Pitt's very good. So I like West Virginia to cover. I think that's going to be one of the better games in Tucson this year. Is Arizona West Virginia? I'm looking forward to it. I think West Virginia wins and covers.
All right. How about you, Barrett?
I'm kind of being a copycat on Shane and pretty much echo what he's thinking there.
Yeah, I don't think much of Pittsburgh either. They made a nice comeback against Cincinnati last week, but I think West Virginia wins this game by a touchdown. Usually the home team does pretty well here, but I'm with Shane's logic sounded pretty good to me. All right, these next 4 games, this is where it gets fun. The rivalry formerly known as the Civil War. Oregon is a 16.5-point road favorite at Oregon State. Shane, that seems like a lot of points.
It's kind of one of those lines, Eric, where you wonder maybe Vegas knows something we don't. But I can't take Oregon with the points after what we see in the first 2 weeks. Now, I had I think did I get that game right? I think I had Boise State at least covering against Oregon last week, and then the Oregon didn't come close against Idaho. So until proven otherwise, especially on the road, I'm going to have to go with Oregon State to cover.
All right, Barrett, how about you? Oregon State has won the last 2 meetings at home against Oregon.
Well, I think you look at it, there's 2 trains of thought there. Is Oregon going to finally show that they're Oregon and explode and show their true colors, or are their true colors already been shown, and are they just not as good as what people thought? And so after 2 weeks with 2 games where they've squeaked by, I'm not ready to bet the farm that they're going to break out. So I think Oregon State's a solid team. They got still a lot of talent, and ultimately a new coach, but it's a good program. And so I will take Oregon State within the 16 points. I think Oregon wins, but I think it's Oregon State covers.
Yeah, I think this game's going to be close. I think it's within a touchdown. Oregon has offensive line problems similar to Arizona. And Oregon State, don't you think they're kind of mad because they're now basically conferenceless because of Oregon, because of how that all went down? I think there's some payback there. I think this game is close. Oregon just doesn't look right to me. All right, this game I went back and forth on. Washington is a 5-point favorite in the Apple Cup against Washington State. Now, we all have an opinion about this because of Jed Fish. Barrett, I'm going to start with you. Washington at home laying the 5 points. What side are you taking?
I would like to play for Dickert. I think that he is a coach that somehow understands how to motivate his kids. Pullman, Washington, it's a small town, when it comes to colleges across the country, but they know why they're there. And kind of echoing your point, they're the forgotten program here. And so I think that there's just a lot of frustration against the teams that abandoned them. And I'm sure that they feel like Washington was part of that. So I feel like Washington State, is playing solid ball. And I think that they actually end up winning that game. I'm going to go out with a little bit of an upset there.
Wow. Shane, what do you think about that?
I would love to take Washington State in this game, but in Seattle, I just can't. I just can't. I think I don't think Washington. They're ranked in the coaches poll now. Are they? I don't know if they're that good yet. We just don't know much about them. But I say this for Jed Fish: he does know how to win rivalry games. He's won 2 in a row, and I think he'll make it 3 in a row. If it were in Pullman, it might be a different story. But I'm going to take Washington to win it and cover the spread.
I really like how Washington State is playing early this season, but just because it's at home, the line of 5 I don't like. I could see this as a 3 or 4 point game. I'm going to go with Washington by a touchdown. Not confident in that. I would not recommend betting too hard on that game, but this game I think I'm going to. On Thursday night, Arizona State is a 2-point favorite on the road at Texas State. Barrett, you said, oh wait, you were talking about UNLV, about a team improving up north. Oh yeah. Your thoughts on Texas State, who is a legitimate, Blair Willis had him in the group of 5. He had him making the college football playoff when we had him on a month ago. Which way are you leaning in this game?
Going to be interesting because I think Texas State is scoring a lot, but I think ASU's defense is preventing a lot of scores. I really like the running back from ASU, Scadaboo, and I can never really say that I'm going to pull for ASU. That's the problem. It's just against my religion, and so it's a tough game to pick. But I'm probably thinking first road game to counter that, though, right, where they're going to have to move away from Tempe. I think Texas State is hot, and I'm going to go with Texas State with the win.
Shane, you know who quarterbacks Texas State, don't you?
Is it Delora?
It is Jordan
McLeod.
McLeod.
No, Delora he committed there I think for a while, and then he had to get up. So yeah, but Jordan McLeod, yeah, he transferred over from James Madison.
That's correct. So, right. All right, where do you stand on this game?
Yeah, I would. I mean, here's the thing. The nice thing about in these situations about picking ASU is that I'm kind of happy either way. Either they don't cover, I'm good.
Come on.
But no, in all seriousness, I'm still not sure what to make of the Sun Devils. They're definitely better than they were last year.
Sure.
And they were running away with the game against Mississippi State, and then Bulldogs almost came all the way back, and they basically just had Scadaboo just pound the rock down the middle, and it worked, and they were able to run out the clock. But it was, you look at the stat line of that game, it was just a little weird. So I'm not sure how well-rounded a team ASU is, but with that line, I think the Sun Devils are playing well enough to beat Texas State. So I'm going to take ASU to win.
All right. I'm going to take Texas State to win. Jordan McLeod gets a little revenge from the Territorial Cup. Well, he was on some bad, he was on bad Arizona teams. Or a bad Arizona team. Now I think he gets away a high scoring game. I don't trust ASU's passing game. They had trouble at the end of the game, could not put away the game. I think Texas State load the box, stop Scadaboo, and beat him over the top. I think ASU's defense showed vulnerability. High scoring game. Texas State wins outright. All right. Normally I go last, but I'm actually going to go first in Arizona, Kansas State. The line is 7.5 because I'm going to let you guys, close this one out. I think Kansas State is going to win this football game, but I think the 7.5 points is a disrespect towards Arizona. I think this game will be close. I think the Wildcats will scheme a way to get T-Mac the ball. I think he will have a huge game, but I'm not sure I trust the fact that Arizona can shut down Kansas State's running game. With that said, Kansas State 31, Arizona 28. Baker, Barrett, I've done second time I've done that.
He's done it a bunch of times. We're on a last name basis. Call him
Thank you. Of course. You want. Barrett, what do you say?
I'm just, as a passionate fan, former player, but now a fan, I can't get my heart out of the way. And so when I look at Kansas State, I'm thinking, well, were they looking ahead, or why were they down 20-10 at the half of their last game? And so I don't think that obviously they are the end all be all. I think their coaching staff is pretty solid as well. To me, it's a dodge, but I just don't think we're quite healthy enough on the offensive line that I think that we can control the tempo for 60 minutes. So I would probably think that at this point in time, it's going to be more like a 31-23 type of game. And I just don't think that we have quite the health to outscore them.
All right. And that's an honest prediction, and I appreciate that. I mean, listen, we're not here to lie and make picks that we don't think are going to happen. So here, Shane, you get the final word on this game. Let us hear it.
Well, I was on a K-State podcast the other day, and I made my score prediction, so I'm gonna have to stick with what I gave them. And if you remember last week, I did have Tulane as my upset special against K-State.
You did.
I got 1 point out of that, and I was feeling pretty good about 2 for a while. I watched the end of that game, and Kansas State had a late stand to pull it off. They had a defensive touchdown in the fourth quarter. I think, along with the offensive lineup, which I completely agree with Barrett, I think Krosky Merritt, assuming he's still going to be out, and I guess at this point it certainly sounds like he probably will be for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. I think that's a big loss, even though I do like Quali Conley quite a bit, and they do have some depth at that position. On defense, my biggest concern is Kansas State has a mobile quarterback, and we saw what Devin Dampier did in week 1, and that concerns the heck out of me. Avery Johnson's got to be very excited to play this game. And so I think the struggles in the offensive line combined with a mobile dual threat quarterback, I think, and being on the road as well at K-State in a primetime matchup, 2 ranked teams. I'm sure that K-State's coaching staff has told them this, or is telling their players all week that we have a chance to beat the team with the longest winning streak in the country, which is still crazy that it's Arizona. And we'll enjoy it for as long as we have left. But my official prediction for the game was Kansas State 34, Arizona 20, and I'm going to go ahead and stick with that for this podcast as well.
All right, so we got a couple of you guys that are fading Arizona against the spread. I'm taking them with the points. Let's hope it's a close game. I think a blowout, and we're really sitting here discouraged. I hope that's not the case. I hope this Arizona team held something back. Shane and I talked about that earlier in the show. We talked about it with you, Barrett, as well. Let's hope we see something more evolution on offense so we're not criticizing Dino Babers here next week. But always appreciate having you on. It's great conversation, and I have a feeling we will talk to you again soon. So for Shane Dale and Barrett Baker, I am Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, especially this week, longest winning streak in the country. Bear down.